Welcome to the Propreneur Podcast, where we help practice owners become better entrepreneurs. I'm your host, Dino Watt. And welcome once again, everybody, to the Propreneur Podcast. Excited to have you here again today for another round of best practices with our professionals on the show. And today is no exception because we don't just have one great superstar guest. We also have two people who are going to share with us how you can create the best practices in your practice. Before we get on to that, remember, if you are a listener to the show and you've listened to more than one, remember to share it with your friends, colleagues, family members, and help them learn the best practices that they can use in their show as well. Today, we're going to be interviewing Dr. Jamie Reynolds and Dr. Jeff Kozlowski, who are basically, kind of rock stars. You guys call yourself rock stars in the industry? Yeah. Like, who doesn't know these two guys? So I'm just honored and privileged to have you guys on the show. Welcome to the show.
Hey, thanks, Dino.
Now, with a name like Dino, I'm very particular with names. So, Jeff, did I say your name right? Kozlowski. Kozlowski, right?
Kozlowski.
I know you're so cool. Everybody calls you Koz, but I just want to make sure I got
that. We can do that. Yeah, Kozlowski.
Well, thank you guys for being on the show. And one of the things that I love to do in this show always is to find out everyone's story. I think that's the most, the best way that we connect to one another is through our stories. So if you wouldn't mind, take turns and actually tell us, why did you choose, or did it choose you, orthodontics, first of all? And second of all, how did you guys get to kind of become friends and grow in your partnership?
So age before beauty, I'll go first. My father was an orthodontist. My mother was a nurse, and they're both retired now. And I really enjoyed seeing both of them with their interactions with patients. I spent some time, obviously, in braces myself when my dad was doing my treatment. Went to college. Initially, I wanted to go to business school, so I was studying economics and finance, but did my dentistry, pre-dentistry minor. Ended up going to dental school and then did well enough to get on to ortho school from there. Actually joined a group practice with my dad for the first 9 years of my professional career, and then eventually made the decision to open my own practice about 12 years ago. And since then, we've grown to 3 locations and 2 docs. And so that's the basic background of my story: business to dentistry to my own practice.
Which is a unique story, right? Because you hear so often how docs just aren't given that business background. And that's something that obviously you were excited about exploring before you even got into the industry, which is probably one of the main reasons for a lot of your success, because you are thinking with the business mind.
Well, it was for me, I realized that business wasn't taught in dental school and beyond. So I made the decision to major in business before going there to expand my horizons a little bit.
Very, very smart. That's awesome. Well, thank you for sharing that. All right, Jamie, how about you?
When I grew up, I wanted to do anything related to sports. So I actually went to college. At first, I wanted to be Isaiah Thomas when I grew up. I was a big Pistons fan. But I wasn't as good or nearly as good as that. So I wound up going to college and trying to be an athletic trainer. So I wanted to work with sports. So my first 2 years in college, I was doing athletic training. And, my sophomore year at the end, when the senior trainers, I went to Michigan, senior trainers for the football team, I always wanted to grow up to be an NFL athletic trainer. And he got a job with the San Diego Chargers and didn't take it to go to medical school. And I remember asking him why not. And he said, I just don't feel like that's my calling for whatever reason. And it kind of made me stop and think. And very shortly after that, one of my friends from the track team in high school, dad was a dentist, and called me and said, hey, I hear you're thinking about switching, going to medical school. You should think about not only going to dental school, but going into ortho school, which had never been on my radar at the time. And then he started telling me about what a great profession it was and talking about orthodontics, and it made me at least stop and think. So then that summer I kind of spent some time looking into it, and next thing you know, I'm taking the DAT, and 20 years later, here I am talking to you guys. So.
Wow. I have to ask, I was forced to be athletic when I was a kid, in the sense of like wrestling. My stepdad made me do wrestling, but I was a dancer performer. That's what I wanted, which, is athletic too, but not the same way. How do you feel that your training in athletics has helped you in business as a business owner?
I think a team sport, I did football, basketball, and track in high school. And then actually after I hung up athletic training, I tried out for the volleyball team, wanted to play volleyball in college. And I think, interacting with the team and the lessons gained from team sports, regardless of which one it is, I think are powerful in life and in business. Maybe there's some careers where it's really only about you. But even the best performers in sports don't win anything without having an amazing team. And there's a bunch of different 100%. Roles to play on that team. So I think, I think there's lessons for anyone in sports, whether you're good or not, or in between.
Absolutely agree with that. I think that's a great point, and that we see that often, right? You'll see sometimes you have teams or I would say docs who are just trying to fit the right, round peg in the round hole and just not worry about the rest of the team, and looking for maybe the really good closer or the really good clinician, as opposed to everyone being the team so we can win. What's that saying? You can win games with superstars, but you can't win championships or something like that. I totally messed that up, but you know what I'm talking about.
Hey, Dino, let me add to that. What I learned from athletics, I went to Syracuse and walked on to the swimming team and did not deserve a position on the team when I got there. I learned grit through athletics. So I walked onto the swim team, suffered through a year on the team, just in terms of the amount of physical volume of the training, which I wasn't equipped for, and then transitioned to walking onto the rowing team, and then rowed varsity for 3 years at Syracuse after that. So I learned that hard work will help you get where you're going. I mean, certainly you need some amount of skill, but perseverance and again, the team approach, as Jamie said. But what I learned from college athletics was grit.
That's a really good point. I wonder, I would love to get your guys' thoughts on this. One of the things that I talk about when it comes to hiring and firing team members is that I would rather hire enthusiasm over skill, because I can usually teach the skill, but I can't always teach enthusiasm. Have you guys found that to be kind of true when it comes to grit, working through the hard stuff? Would that be accurate?
Totally. Absolutely.
I think there is some, positionality to that statement. I think from a broad base, you want that enthusiasm and grit, determination by far number one. But I do think, the orthodontic ecosystem has some pretty significantly different pieces that are involved in the, in the big chess game, So I think if you're hiring, you do have to take into consider some of that skill set, at least as far as which seats on the bus you put the people ultimately in.
Yeah, make sure you have the right people on that bus. That's true.
Yeah, to that point, I was able to be on the rowing team because I was 6'3". So at 5'2", I was probably not going to be a rower. So to Jamie's point, some amount of manual dexterity is important for our clinical assistants who are autonomous.
Yeah.
And so you could have the right attitude and train a lot of things, but without the manual dexterity, that part of it could be challenging. So I'd agree with Jamie.
That's true. I kind of chuckled when you said that, Jamie, about your aspirations, because I had no desire at all, but I always remember kind of loud when people say, you can do whatever you want, you can do whatever you want. And I know, like, back in my day, and I'm not sure how old you guys are, but there was Spud Webb, right, who was 5 foot something.
Oh, yeah.
As a great basketball player,
5'3",
right?
yeah.
But there's not a lot of 5 foot something guys who are out there and like taking on the NBA. And I always used to look at me like, well, you got to have some sort of height. You got to have some sort of like ability that way, not just because you really love basketball. So I would look at my friends who are like, I'm going to be in the NBA. I'm like, yeah, no, you're my height. That's just probably not going to happen. But so let's get on to how you guys actually connected and met each other, because you actually don't live in the same area. And I'm sure through study clubs and through other places like that. How did you guys first get together and start talking shop?
I'm pretty sure it was at the bar at a meeting in at the Greenbrier in wherever that is, West Virginia. Kaz and I both suffer from the LMS disease, last man standing.
Oh,
it's a gender neutral term, but we're always seemingly the last people up trying to solve the world's problems, and I think became quick friends that way.
Really? So you guys both get off on really just like, okay, so here's a big challenge. Let's see how many ways we can solve it.
Over a six-pack, usually, yes, but that's
Oh.
okay.
Yeah.
So then the ideas get more and more progressively crazy and out there the more you drink, or?
I think there's some evidence that could prove that true. Yeah.
That's good. You're letting down the inhibitions and like, what can't we do? Let's actually make it happen. Okay. So you met at some event somewhere. You started talking about some of the craziness that goes on, or what you can do to improve business. And what was next?
Well,
boy.
the way that I remember it is, right. I don't know.
I feel like I'm asking you for the first date story or something. This is weird.
So the meeting was, Ormco has a group they call the Insiders, which started as a lingual braces group and then ultimately is a collection of bright people from around the country that are present company notwithstanding. But they do a lot of clinical trials and things. And so I was young and really interested in getting involved in clinical trials. Koz had started the passive sulfite-gating insignia clinical trial. It's a raving success. And I was interested in that, along with talking with him and Bob Smith. And then he gave me a call one day on his way back from California where he was doing the trial and said, hey, we're going to take it out of California and do it in a few select offices. Do you have any interest? I think it's going to be really cool. And then, the clinical trial went up well. Koz had all this really amazing clinical data that he's shared, which made him sort of a worldwide sensation almost overnight with the lecture tour with the insignia stuff. And then he was kind of included me in that, and that's when I started kind of lecturing as a sidekick to Chef Kozlowski with the insignia, and that's when we really, I think, started to be really close, because we wound up doing a lot of things together, working on the insignia product.
And so that led you guys into obviously being close quarters with one another, finding out about even the best practices that you're doing inside your own business and how you can improve on not just your practices, but just orthodontics in general.
Yeah, I would say that it had a significant impact on that. At that point we were talking clinical, and one of my areas of focus had always been clinical efficiency. Mm-hmm. How do we create great smiles in the fewest number of months and in the fewest number of appointments? And as we went through that really kind of became the center focus for my practice. And maybe jumping past talking about our individual practices, what came out of that was the question. We would go through 8-hour lectures together, Jamie and I would do. And we'd get out of it and we'd get done. And the first question someone would come up and ask us and say is, that's great that you can do treatment in 12 to 16 months. But how do you get patients to pay for it? Traditionally in orthodontics, you either paid in full or you put a lot of money down and paid over treatment time, which is easy when treatment time averages 30 months. Right. But when treatment time averages 15 months and you're using a more expensive appliance, it was the traditional philosophy in orthodontic financing. And so that's what led us to really whiteboard, which to us means cocktail napkin, pen and pencil through some of the questions and problems we had. And ultimately that's where OrthoFi came from, which Jamie and I co-founded almost 8 years ago with our CEO, Dave Turnan. And that was about finding a way as treatment times reduce and orthodontic treatment costs go up, but they haven't gone up significantly, but the cost of the orthodontist goes up with clear aligner products and digital products. How do we help patients receive quality orthodontic care from top quality orthodontics in a way that's affordable? And so OrthoFi was really the brainchild of that. Now, we won't go into the long story on our initial idea. Wasn't a great idea because it was going to be a financing company, but you needed lots of money to be able to finance lots of treatment. Sure. And when we got business guys involved, they said, that's why you guys should stick to straightening teeth and not do business, because that's a poor idea. But we transitioned it into insurance confirmation, insurance eligibility, managing the insurance and financials for patients. And OrthoFi has done well over the last 7 years, and we're in 500 locations now. And it's really helping patients be able to afford top quality orthodontists and top quality treatment, especially with reduced treatment times.
Well, so it seems like it was the convergence of that business mindset that both of you had around, making sure you're doing the best practice in your business. But also what I really like about it is that it's actually ultimately serving the patient at another level. Now, I think a lot of times we can look at the products and services that are out there for the doctor, and absolutely that's a benefit. But if we can really show the patient how it's serving them and making their life easier as well too, how it's really helping them progress in their treatment better, then that's where we ultimately win as managers, as owners of businesses. Jamie, my question for you is, when you guys got together and had this first aha moment, this whole thought, look, you guys are busy guys. You got practices that are growing at a very healthy pace. You've been in this game for a long time. What made you think, it's a really good idea. Let's start another business outside of this?
I think, the word for it is entrepreneurial optimism, which, I think is translated to too stupid to know any better. So we had Charlene White up at the office a long time ago, and she had told me about some doctors somewhere or another that had decided to charge interest to some of their patients for extended term. Mm-hmm. And I always remembered that they had formed some kind of bank, and I always thought that was really interesting. My dad was in business, and he actually told me I could do whatever I want so long as it wasn't business. And I find it ironic that Koz and I spend most of our time talking about business stuff now in healthcare. But, that kind of concept was maybe like, hey, how do we get involved in this? This insignia thing, they created a problem that we didn't know how to solve. So we started asking around. And really, I think the aha moment was I came back after a meeting with the guys, and we thought maybe, we didn't have the right model, and we didn't have enough money to, didn't have $500 million to lend people like Care Credit did. And, I was asking my office manager, hey, you're spending all your time up here working on accounts, but I thought we were on auto pay, so what are you spending so much time on? She said, I didn't spend any time really with the patient. I spent all my time on insurance. And to me, that was kind of the aha moment. But I called Dave Turner, the guy that we had that was going to be our CEO, and that was kind of, I think, the first time we realized we might have something. If we knew at all how difficult insurance would actually turn out to be to manage on a scaled up thing, we never would have done it because it's an incredible, insatiable beast. But he and his team have done an amazing job growing it into something that's consistent. But I think that's really where it kind of got off the ground. Was that conversation with the office manager, and then of course validated by Koz's office manager.
So educate me and also people who might be listening to this. Again, this obviously is very orthodontic focused, but there are obviously 500 offices. There are obviously people out there who have yet to experience OrthoFi or have it in their office. We talked about the insurance collectible side of things, but, and this is my understanding, and please correct me if I'm wrong, but is a part of the service that you give, not just the insurance stuff, but actually helping just collect the money in general. If there are doctors out there who don't accept insurance, just giving them a pathway to collect that money without it having to be in office. Is that correct?
Yeah, so we think that we've kind of built, technically the company is called a software as a service company.
Mm-hmm. SaaS, yeah.
Or a tech-enabled services company. So we have kind of two parts. The first part, we think we built the first elective healthcare CRM, customer relationship management tool. It's basically a software piece that from the time the person enters the system, which is when the new patient phone call rings, all the way through the forms, insurance verification, credit checking, all the way up until either you recommend treatment or you don't. And then they start or they go into some sort of pending follow-up or observation management piece. That's the customer relationship management part. So we feel like we built the first customized version of that in the elective healthcare space. And then the back end is that once they actually do start treatment, all the insurance verification, submission, and collections, plus the patient receivables collections is all managed, handled, and accounted for by the system, and then the money's deposited in the doctor's bank account. So it's sort of a full end-to-end service from helping the patient get started with treatment and then managing the receivable portion. Especially what we've learned is that many doctors' offices, even the good ones, are not really good at collecting money. So, and then the people that are in charge of collecting the money aren't really hired for, they're hired for the personality and everything else that isn't maybe translated the best towards collecting money. And they're not given the time to accurately do it, nor the leadership and guidance or the tools to do it well. So we found that management, the professional management of that really raises the level of success that you can have in that collections piece. So you can be, which then allows you to be more flexible with the patient, which allows more patients to start. And so this is kind of this big flywheel that spins up on growth and success in the practice by the software and the flexibility and then the professional management at the same time.
Wow.
I don't know if that was too long-winded, sorry.
No, it makes sense. And it also makes me think of the benefit of getting that particular piece. Like you said, most people that are hired in offices, my experience anyway, they graduate to different levels inside of the practice, right? Somebody was really good front office receptionist, and then they became, okay, well, maybe I can be a records tech, and then, oh, maybe you're so nice with people, maybe you could be a good TC, and then a financial coordinator, and then office manager. But real training behind all of that, and actually someone who is specifically a salesperson or a financial collector, they just on the job learning. So you're taking a big chunk of that out, number one. And number two, just again, from my experience, I see a lot of offices that are kind of leaving money on the table because they're not going after that money as aggressively as they could. Number one. Number two, they don't have a system in place to follow up with that. So I love that you've mentioned your CRM helps them get through that whole process and kind of out of their hands and put it into the hands of professionals. Does that sound about right?
Yeah, we'd like to think of it because it kind of all comes on an iPad, right? So you just, iPad comes out of the box, and then you have a top performing sort of back-end team, and then a lot of smart algorithms behind some of the sales stuff that goes into it that kind of comes out of the box. Especially it's great for either offices that are trying to perform better or even the very first ones that don't have any idea how to hire and train an insurance coordinator and all those things. So
that's awesome. That's very cool. Okay, so now we've done OrthoFi. You've got together as a team. You've built this company up. You said 5 years now?
7.
8, yeah.
7, 8 years old.
Something like that.
7, 8 years. Okay. And now you're taking this to a whole nother level with your connection with each other, your partnership with one another. You're successful there. It's still growing, obviously, but now where are you taking this when it comes to you and your partnerships of what you're doing next?
Well, I think, what we realize is the ways our practices are winning differently. So one of the questions, you asked me before is how are our practices winning?
Yes.
And, and we'll go in a little bit of reverse order in terms of the patient life cycle. And I'd say a way that our practice is winning here in Connecticut is through culture and efficiency.
Okay.
And so one of our clinical cultures is a philosophy of doing everything we can at each visit. So if a patient's in the office and they took time out of work and school and the patient's there, even if you scheduled to do A and B today, but in your mind that if you did C and D as well, those 4 things would get the patient further forward in treatment, would save numbers of visits. Your treatment would be more effective. You'd have fewer patients to get through over the course of the day, of the week, of the month. So clinical efficiency is super important, but the culture behind that is this philosophy that if we have 30 minutes for an appointment, but we could add 15 more minutes to that appointment to save another half an hour, 45-minute appointment weeks or months down the road, that's going to help the throughput of orthodontics from the time they get braces on to the time they get braces off be more effective. So in the United States right now, orthodontic treatment on average averages about 20 appointments or so. My focus is to try and finish that in about 12 visits over an average of about 17 to 18 months across the board. And so those extra visits we're saving give us more time to spend with patients, more time to give customer service, and ultimately more time either to train our team or to be out doing some of the things we want to do outside of the office. So that's really, for us, it's a culture of do everything you can when the patient's in the office, provide great customer service, get along as a team, and take care of the patients efficiently. And I'll let Jamie tell his story, but when we realized the areas where we both are winning, they're similar but different in a way that it kind of puts together sort of what we think of as a whole package for how to take care of your patients in your practice. So, Jamie?
Well, Jamie, before you do that, what I liked about that idea is that, as you were saying, that it really is patient-centric, right? Because if you're thinking, I could hear somebody in the car right now being like, yeah, but what about, the artistry of what you do? And is that really serving the customer, the patient, if, you're trying to cut down on the time? And my answer to that would be, well, yeah, like that's total service, right? Like you said, if mom has to take time off work for herself, take child out of school for themselves, the faster I can cut that down, or the more, and if I present it that way too, and saying, hey, so one of the things we understand is that most people don't want to spend all their time in the office, and your time is valuable too. What if we could do 2 more things during this visit that would help cut down your having to come back here in half or in a quarter or whatever? It's funny because, as you said, that instead of doing a 30-minute appointment, do a 45-minute appointment so you get more done. I can't tell you how many doctors I've talked to that think, oh, no, like how much can we cram into the 30 minutes knowing that we're going to do another 30 minutes in 2 weeks, 6 weeks, whatever it is?
Well, Dina, I would answer that with, you started on someone focus on the the artistry or the finish of the orthodontic treatment. I'm not saying that you give up the beautiful aesthetics and the incredible function at the expense of fewer appointments.
Right.
I'm saying that we need to find a way to combine those into each visit.
Yeah.
One of the things we do differently in my practice is we take photos of every single patient at every visit.
Oh my gosh, I'm so glad to hear you say that.
We have a huge volume of learning. Not only can we use it to educate our patients and parents on what we're doing, we have a huge volume of learning for ourselves and for our team so that we know, here's what we do today. And based on 22 years of experience of having taken photos at every visit, I know it's going to be 6 weeks till the next visit, and we can do these things at that appointment. So there's this sort of backwards mindset in orthodontics that those who finish faster do crappy work. Okay. And I think it's possible to do excellent aesthetic work, excellent functional work with an attention to detail on what your goal end result is, and then find a way to do it in fewer visits. That's kind of our A game, is how do you do great work in less time and less visits? They can be done together. It's hard, but they can be done together.
I love it. I think it's great. There's an old mentor of mine who had a story who would talk about a man who came along, to a bunch of farmers, and he said, hey, I will he said, the story went like this. There is a farmer who went to his dentist who was a friend of his, and he said, oh, I have this aching tooth. The dentist said, okay, yeah, well, I will take that out. And he goes, well, how much is it going to cost me? And he said, oh, it's going to be $800. Let's just make up the numbers, $800. And the guy goes, oh, okay, well, how long is it going to take you to do that? And he goes, oh, it's taking me about, 5 minutes. And the guy goes, are you kidding me? I'm paying $500 for 8 minutes. He's like, well, if it's the time that you're worried about, I can make it take as long as you want. Like, it can be super painful. But I think a lot of people don't realize the benefit of their own time, or the time you're trying to give to your patients, to where when you can say, I can give you a beautiful smile better than, in a lot of places, because of the skill that I have, the opportunities that I've been able to been taken, and I can translate onto your smile that you came here for. If I did that in 12 months, wouldn't that be better? Isn't that a better stretch of your dollar? Absolutely it is. So I love that you focus on that. Sorry, Jamie, we didn't even let you speak about your thing yet.
No worries.
I just love it. I mean, I honestly, that just gets me excited when I hear people seeing it truly is a client-centric culture. That's what that's about. Yes? I can get an amen. You can say amen if you want. That's fine.
Amen.
Yeah, that's right.
All right. So Jamie, so then how are you winning in your practice and when it going on the back of that?
Yeah, I mean, listen, as I was learning, I looked up to Kozlowski. He's like my big brother, and I was always kind of trying to model what I was doing after him, doing the insignia, working on the efficiency and everything. And the difference was, though, as I got a little further along in my career, I went to work with a really bright guy named Larry Spillane. You can see his name up here, and he's really well known in the community. And so I started, thinking a lot about, okay, well, as we get closer towards retirement and we build this big practice and then Larry leaves, then, what does that mean for me? And then I still was on the hook for a lot of money that I had owed him for the backside of the practice. So I was concerned, am I making the right investment? And then we hired a really bright young associate, Andrea Dopp, and then another one, Jeff Hines, another one, Brian Pataki lately. So we started to work with multiple doctors, and so I started thinking about, okay, well, how can we make this efficient system kind of work across multiple doctors, multiple teams, multiple locations? And it really boiled down a lot to standardizing the message we were putting out in the community, the marketing, if you will, the message that we were broadcasting to people about who we are and why we do what we do. And then the ability to convert those prospective customers through the marketing concept into customers using the sales process. And I started to get really interested about, first with a couple doctors and then with more, how do you build more of a process-based and a content-based sales process that was more about educating customers about why what we're offering for them is in their best interest, and less about selling people things they don't need or being duplicitous or any of those things we think about when we think about sales. So I started to spend a lot of time doing that, and over time we kind of, a lot with what we've learned from OrthoFi and help from certain different consultants that we've used to kind of build kind of a scalable sales and marketing process that, that works without really doing things that aren't in the patient's best interest.
Have you read the Challenger Sale? The book
Challenger Sale?
Yeah, the Challenger Sale.
I have not.
So that's the premise around it, is that actually there is a study that was done that proves that educating your patients is a far better way, and challenging them is a far better way to convert people into actually buying your products or services than asking the age-old question or trying to get them to say, first of all, to say yes, second of all, to find out what they want. And which is a really interesting thing, right? Because we always want to find out, and I think the most important question we can ask ourselves is, what do you want? The biggest challenge with that is a lot of times people don't know what they want. And so we, as the professionals, have to educate people on what they want. So that education marketing is something that I believe needs to take hold more and more, grab root more and more with a lot of professionals who don't understand that. They think just being able to get more referrals coming in and get their name out there more, that's going to help it. But it's actually telling people exactly how you can help them and what they need to understand. Matter of fact, the 3 pyramid in the Challenger Sale is to teach, tailor, and take control. And so that teach is the first piece. Teach people how to do or what they should know or want to know, tailor it to their needs, and then take control of the sale and then get them into it. So I love that you're doing that. I just wanted to mention that because what you said is right on that alley. It just makes sense. So now you guys put this together, you're doing great work, and now you're taking those winning practices and you're speaking about it everywhere. You're talking about it to all your colleagues, and what's next?
Nothing, apparently.
Either one. Either one of you.
That's really what I think Koz and I are a lot about. We, the stuff that we've been doing, both starting with Insignia, was trying to help doctors and to deliver to patients what they want, more faster, more efficient treatment, help doctors become better clinical orthodontists, have better clinical outcomes, and automate some of that, which has sort of rolled into OrthoFi, where we're trying to help people do better with the sales process and the receivables process and all those things that we're not really naturally probably good at or trained to do. Mm-hmm. And so really our passion, and then we go out there and do tons of speaking, and we kind of give away all of the secrets that we have, all the data that we've accumulated, and we just put it out there and try to help people learn from it. because we want patients ultimately to wind up where we believe they belong, which is in the hands of highly motivated and skilled doctors. And that's what's good for the patients. That's what's good for us. It's a win-win scenario, which we really like. So, that's really the genesis of why we do what we do.
Well, I would like to even just put a little shout out there from what happened recently at the Ormco event that I was able to witness. When you say that you're out there speaking and telling your secrets, spilling your secrets to other doctors, because you really want them to be these highly educated, motivated professionals. And this last event, you literally had your sales team teach your sales process, which is, you and I are having a conversation on a bus, on the bus going out to dinner, about how that is something not a lot of people in this industry is specifically actually focus on, is an actual salesperson and a sales process, because they want to call it presenting or making an offer or, just letting them make a choice, instead of actually understanding it's a sales process. You actually literally told people your sales process at the last event.
Yeah, we built the lecture, we've given a lot of kind of theoretical lectures on it, but a lot of the feedback, especially when we have some teams there, is like, okay, well, how do I kind of adapt that Monday morning?
Yeah, but how, right.
Yeah, so we want to, and I remember for a long time trying to find that exactly myself. So we know that, we built a process where our TCs are all very close to each other in conversion, and 4 of the top 8 converters and the 800 or 900 TCs in OrthoFi. So we built something that works across multiple people, multiple doctors.
That's amazing.
And what we wanted to do is, and I mean, you were there, this is not blowing smoke. We literally walked through every single piece of the choreography and the rationale behind it, the why, how to manage objections, how to create value, step by step, and then answer questions for the end, just because we want people to have that information so that they can do it themselves. There were even a couple of our competitors in the room. But I personally believe that there's so much out there, as far as, success,
yep.
That, I'm not really concerned about anything other than just trying to throw as much of that out there so that we can all have it together.
Which I think is brilliant, because I use the saying all the time that if you're so worried about your competitors, then you don't know who your ideal client is, because then you just you're not going after your ideal client, you're going after everybody. And competition is totally between the gray matter or the gray matter between your ears, I think 100%. So Koz, then now you have talked about these great systems that you put together. You have your different ways that you have these winning opportunities. And now, we're in an evolution of practices, I believe. Right now, there's a huge evolution going on. There's a ton of DSOs popping up. There's a ton of people who are really not sure about what the future brings. So what is the future bringing for the two of you?
So we're back to the business road, which is, we decided when we looked at where Jamie's winning and where I'm winning, and feeling like putting those things together creates an area of kind of ultimate strength around the different aspects of the practice. So in November, we created a new company called Orthodontic Partners. And so Jamie and I have effectively combined our practices and are working on cross-training our best practices from each office, building out, training manuals for teams, et cetera. And the goal of Orthodontic Partners is to bring on board, so effectively, to be clear, it's a DSO, we'll call it an OSO, or Orthodontic Support Organization, with a goal of bringing practices on where docs want to continue practicing, want to find a way to enhance their marketing and conversion, enhance their culture and their clinical efficiency, to continue to improve. So we want docs that want to come on board, not and sell their practice and walk away at this point in time. But docs who really want to be part of a collaborative effort. And that's how we built OrthoFi. It wasn't Jamie and I. There's so many other names that we couldn't go through now, but docs from all over the country that many orthodontists know by name and know personally, who are exceptional, taking care of their patients and their teams and their community, that came on board to help us build OrthoFi. And so our goal is really by orthodontists for orthodontists. And it's the collaboration of orthodontic practices across the country that want to come together, input their best practices into the group's best practices, and then find a way that as a group we can build this internally competitive environment towards excellence. So just taking bright clinical orthodontists, business-minded orthodontics, great teams, great locations, great cultures, and bring them together into one larger organization of collaboration really is the best basic background of it.
No, I love that collaboration. I don't know if you're using that as your tagline or not, but by orthodontists for orthodontists part, like that makes a lot of sense, right? I get it right away, right? It's like, oh, that makes sense. I get that. And creating that collaborative effort for all ships rising with the tide, right? Like if we all win together because we have the same mindset, we all get the same training, we all get the same rewards, if you will, and focus. I love that a lot. So how is that kind of separating you from I don't know this, so I want to ask this question. How does that separate you from other DSOs that people have heard about in the past or experienced in the past?
I think a couple things. Number one, we're focused on, if you look behind Jamie's shoulder there, Spillane Reynolds, and for us, it's Kozlowski Orthodontics. We worked hard over the last 2 decades to build our brands within our community. Dentistry in general, even on a national scale, is really to a large extent it's a local organization. And so, number one, we'd like docs that have invested a lot of time and energy to building their brand, their community support, their teams to continue to be the practices that they are. So it's not a change in name to where we all go to corporate dental, or corporate ortho. Number two, even though Jamie and I are passive self-ligation users and have lectured with Ormco and Damon for me for almost 20 years now, what I know from having a lot of friends and colleagues in the ortho profession is that great orthodontists are great to a large extent, irrespective of what appliance system or technique or philosophy they use. So I would much rather have a great orthodontist continue being great the way they've done things. Now, Look, if there's a reason to change or you're inefficient or your results aren't what you want to be, then maybe we've got some advice on how to proceed with that. But keep using tried and true techniques for you so long as they're effective. And I think the third thing we're looking to build is an organization where, associates are coming out of school with more and more debt. The ability and desire to buy practice is becoming more difficult, and I think hence the desire is becoming less open. Docs coming out, at least from what I've heard, they think that practice ownership is out of reach, but they'd like to be involved in an organization where they make a difference, rather than having sort of that revolving associate door every couple of years. As they come in, they learn, make a little bit of money, and go out and start their own practice, which there's nothing wrong with starting your own practice. That's not my point. The point is there a place that you can come in to be an associate for a period of time and then develop into a clinical director where you're overseeing the patients and the operation of the clinic, and then maybe moving on to and at clinical director, you have some ownership stake in the bigger business, or you have the opportunity to invest in the ownership stake of the bigger business, and then moving on to a partner where maybe now you're overseeing clinical teams and the entire team and deciding on who you hire and who you bring on and put in the right seats on the bus, to then maybe even moving up to a managing partner where now as a managing partner with some experience, and I don't know the timeline on this, 10 to 15 years, but maybe you're overseeing younger docs that need growth and development and mentoring, helping to train teams and bring philosophies into practices and newly acquired practices. So sort of this runway for orthodontists that it's not a choice between owning your own practice or being a corporate associate for your entire career.
Right. Yep.
And there's some sort of upward mobility in that depending on what your skills are and what your desires are.
Well, what a great launch pad for people, right? To not just learn. So forgive me, but this is an analogy I use often when I talk about maybe a little more old school or maybe traditional doctors. They come out of school not learning how to run a practice. Then they associate in a practice by somebody who did not know how to run a practice or run a business. So it's basically that old saying, like blind leading the blind. In many cases, I think there's proof to show that there is a 3% of the population are entrepreneurs. So we bring that down to 3% of orthodontists being entrepreneurs too. Then you have a lot of people learning some old school ways of doing their business that maybe weren't the most effective. And so now they're not as effective as they could be in their own practice once they bought into that ineffective practice. Here, what you just said was, we're going to take people who want to come to a practice and learn truly the best practices that are proven, that are from the marketing, the culture, the clinical efficiency. And then you're going to have an opportunity to grow kind of like a franchise manager or a restaurant manager in that way, where you can actually grow with the business, or you can go out on your own and look what you've gained by being here. You actually can go out and start a practice with some actual really good best practices and learning how to do business. I think it makes a lot of sense to me. And I wish there's more people doing that. Jamie, my question for you is, as you guys, again, are thinking about this, we look back at what you did with OrthoFi and the first thoughts of what it was going to be and then what it turned into be, what's your vision for this? Like, what's the vision for this next step and the best outcome?
OrthoFi, as it started to get bigger and bigger, its phone started ringing with people who wanted to do one of two things. They either wanted to invest in OrthoFi, and so the people at OrthoFi would talk about that. And then there was the other part, the other half or so, that were just wanting to invest in the orthodontic space in some sort of group consolidated practice. And the reason why Koz and I are involved in it is less because it's really what we wanted to do or wanted things to go that way, but we've become overwhelmingly convinced, both by our own experience and by listening to other people like Chris Benson, some of the people that we really trust in the space, that a lot of this industry consolidation is happening. So we started talking to them, and there's so much money coming in this space that the consolidation is inevitable. And there's also a lot of other healthcare industries where you can kind of see the writing on the wall, or it's happening simultaneously, even in veterinary medicine, dermatology, urgent care are the big ones right now. And so, Koz and I kind of felt like, because of our experience with OrthoFi, and we have maybe more business building experience than the typical orthodontist would have, and because of our experience, teaching a lot of the high-end efficiency, clinical efficiency techniques to try to deliver better care, we kind of felt like, whether it's narcissism or the inner Eagle Scout in us, or some combination between the two, we wanted to have our hands on the wheel in this way, because we feel like a large percentage of the consolidation might go one direction, and we don't really feel like that's really ultimately in the best interest of the younger doctors, the older doctors, or the patients. And so if we can kind of steer it into the other direction, more towards the Johns Hopkins and Mayo Clinic collaboration amongst the best practitioners, and although it's consolidated for good, we're hoping that maybe we can kind of build something that one day, our industry can be a little proud of, that if this is the way it's going to be shaped, then we're happy that, the collective group of people that were involved in it did that. I guess if that's really a vision that makes any sense.
Well, it sounds like that would be a really good outcome for you. Anything you want to add to that, Koz?
Well, I would say I think there's a number of directions that can go as well. Quick story: my dad, before he started ortho school, before he went to dental school, was a pharmacist, and his dream job was to go back to his hometown of Boonville, New York, which is about as big as it sounds, and take over the local pharmacy, which at that time, even in the 60s, going into the 70s, was already looking at consolidation in pharmacy. And if you look at where pharmacists are now, you don't have at home, you don't have mom and pop pharmacy shops, and they're working for better or worse for CVS and Walmart, et cetera. And Christmas Eve and weekends. And that's some part of the pharmacy industry. The point of the matter is, we don't want to see a day where, when our kids want to be orthodontists, that their job is only working for general dental groups or pediatric dental groups, or corporate orthodontic groups, where the only path is you get a degree and you work for us for the rest of your life as an associate. We want to create sort of an idea that I can still do everything I would have done in my private practice and go through all the learning and the development and the business knowledge. I got to learn my clinical skills. I got to learn my people management skills. I've got to learn my business development skills. But I've got people there that are going to help. This is what I tell Dr. Mike DePascal, who's in our office. He's been with us 2.5 years. I said, listen, man, at 2.5 years, you are at, in terms of knowledge and communication and people management, what took me more than a decade to get to. And I had mentors, but not ones that were really, truly focused on my development, not just in how to straighten teeth, but on how to do other parts of the business. And so to try and create that pathway, I think, whether it's a clinical advisory board that can advise on clinical excellence or having business mentors, someone who can help you with challenges you're having on how to work out team culture challenges or communication challenges. That's kind of the thing we want to do, is to have it long after Jamie and Jeff are gone. We want to have it be a self-supporting business that is built on quality care, mentorship, personal growth and development, and an upward mobility path, not just for orthodontists, but for our teams. So I think that's what we're really excited about.
So you're really creating that legacy, right? Your idea is to create the legacy practices and the legacy practitioners. Is awesome. I could talk about this stuff all day long. I think it's fascinating where, if we really look at anybody listening to this that is involved in any, as you said, so many industries are doing this right now. There's this evolution happening. And to see that there's opportunity as a solo practitioner, but also an opportunity as someone who would like to do more collaborative efforts, I think that's awesome. And I think that you guys are doing a great job leading the charge here. As in every business, one of the things that happens is that there's challenges. There's challenges that happen no matter what, right? It's that roller coaster ride of being an entrepreneur, which is, for some people, the terrifying part of it, and for others, the fun part of it, right? I like going down as much as I like going up, because I know the up's going to be crazy, right? And it's down can be thrilling. So what are some of the challenges that you guys are facing right now in your businesses?
I mean, we just had a huge issue with our phones that all of a sudden it causes laughing because we're struggling with it. I mean, our business has been growing like crazy for over the last decade, and then all of a sudden we had a great December, and all of a sudden January the bottom fell out, and we kind of scrambled around to figure it out. And it turned out that we had a switch go out in one of our phones in the phone system, but we didn't know it. And then we also moved a couple of people around, and we weren't tracking call answered percentage, and we weren't tracking missed calls and time to answer and stuff like that. And we started, and we realized that for the last several months, 30 to 40% of our calls were going unanswered, right?
Wow.
Like,
that's huge.
Crap.
Yeah.
So we've been scrambling around to fix that. And at the same time, we do some paid search stuff that happens on the internet with Google AdWords and whatnot. And our ad team had made a change that impacted performance that we didn't realize. And so everything kind of happened all at once, and we've been kind of scrambling to fix all of that, which is a huge lesson. But the moral is that, I don't think anybody has it all figured out. And when you think that you do, you're very shortly going to learn that you don't. So everything's always a moving target. It's very easy for someone to get up and speak to make it look easy or seem easier than it actually is, which I think is a big lesson. It's just hard, and determination and grit, as Kaz mentioned, are so important.
Well, that's exactly the reason why I asked this question, and Kaz will get to you in just a moment, but because it's important for everybody out there to know that that's just going to happen. And little things that you would not have thought of, in December, you weren't thinking, we should probably check on our phones to make sure that efficiency is up to date, because it's one of those little things that you just don't think about. And it's not a matter of if, or it's not a matter of if, but when things happen. And more importantly, how you react to them, how you have prepared beforehand so that you can actually react to them. So what about you guys?
And one more thing, and let me interrupt you. We actually had the benefit of some help. So one of the people that works for us at Orthodontic Partners, a guy named Jeff Freeman, has a ton of experience, and he came in and kind of looked under the hood and had some broader experience than we had, and he fixed in probably a week what would have taken me months to fix.
Love it.
So I think a lot of us are kind of penny wise and pound foolish sometimes with getting consulting and getting other people to help in ways that you're not good at. And his expertise just saved us an incredibly, probably long and painful trip back up.
Thank you for making that point, because it has come up on this show multiple times, the importance of hiring a professional to do a professional job, right? Instead of just trying to, like you said, piecemeal it together. So important, so important. All right, Koz, what about you?
Maternity leaves. That's our big challenge. We've got, we just got one back. We have a team of 23. Last spring we had 5 out on maternity all at once. Wow. And this right now in January, February, we've got 2 out, with another one pregnant going out in June, right before our busy summer months. It's one of the side things of having most of our team be between the age of 25 and 35.
Yeah.
But one of the ways we've always handled it is we've had this culture in our office of no wasted human time, and this idea of donating time. So the rule is, if you find yourself at a point where you're waiting for the doctor, or you're waiting for an instrument, or you're waiting for something to be able to move forward with your appointment or with something you're doing, then you donate your time to someone else to make them more effective. So simple things like, if our treatment coordinators have a new patient and they come out to brief me, and I happen to be, say, putting braces on, which they know is going to take a few minutes for me to be there, well, they can go over and type a chart for another clinical assistant, or they can work on Steri. They can do something, not obviously answer phones where they're stuck for a while because they've got to get back as soon as I'm through. And so what's amazing is we haven't had, with a team of approximately 22, we haven't had a time in the last 18 months where we haven't had 2 people out on maternity.
Wow.
And we've effectively been running with a team of 20, even though we probably need 23. And what we realize is that by having people donate the time that they're not being productive to other people to help them be more productive, that we can get more done with less. And so now we worry less about those times where we might be pinched a little bit. For example, today, our clinical coordinator, maybe the most integral person to our clinic running smoothly, was out with the flu today. And so we had huddle in the morning and said to the team, what I can tell you about today is that there are no rules. We're going to figure it out. It's our first day without her, and she's almost never sick or never out. We had a day, we were never behind schedule. We did 6 starts today. 4 of them were same day starts. We did a same day D-band, patient getting their braces off on the spot in the afternoon. And a number of other things that we fit in between the cracks without ever falling behind schedule. And that's not only missing one clinical assistant, but probably our most valuable one in terms of keeping the flow going. So that's kind of the message, is out of the challenges, out of the fire rises the phoenix. So, our team was able to spread their wings today without their leader there a little bit, and everybody gained a little bit of confidence. And so with the leadership from Dr. Mike and myself, and the rest of the team stepping up, you can make successes out of failure. So that's been our biggest thing, is maternity.
Well, failure is the only path to success, right? Like, no matter what. So that's what's great about it.
Even if it hurts along the way.
That's right. Absolutely. Because Tony Robbins says pain is just weakness leaving the body, right? I think that, failure and frustration inside of your business is just pain leaving the business in the same way. I love the idea of the donation. That's if anybody is, paying attention to this and they haven't pulled over or made a mental note about that, about just talking to your team, about donating your time. It's a totally different mindset than like, go help your friend out or go help somebody else out, or don't waste time. Donate that time. And a mentor of mine used to say, many hands make light work, right? So the faster we can get together, get more hands in there, we can make it happen. I love it. Those are 2 great challenges that you're facing, but also great ways that you guys are overcoming them as well. And it just proves to show that you got to have a rock star team who wants to win together. So one of the reasons why you guys have probably heard me say this too, that I don't like the word staff. I like the word team, because the staff is an infection nobody wants, but a team wins Super Bowls or games altogether. So you guys, so many great nuggets, and thank you so much for sharing all of that. We've come to a portion in our show where we ask, we kind of rapid fire 6 questions. Are you guys willing to play?
You bet.
Sure.
All right. So I'm just going to throw out a question. You're going to give me the first answer that comes to your head as quickly as you possibly can. Okay. So what's the number one thing that you wish they would have taught you back in school?
All right. Success is not about clinical ability. Success is about people management with respect to the business.
Very cool. All right, Jamie.
Yeah, I mean, I think the business management would have been nice. I think it took me a long time to really appreciate what reading a financial statement looks like. I think if you say, I want to learn business, that's, they may have whole schools for that. So like to put that into ortho school, it's hard to learn business. But I do think understand some of just the fundamentals of looking at a balance sheet, understanding some of the tax things that go along with that would have been really helpful to not learn for, a decade or longer into career.
Yeah, that's absolutely true. I know that myself firsthand is like, what are these numbers and why should I pay attention to them? Absolutely. Okay. What is a book that you think everyone should be reading as a practice owner?
I love, go ahead, Chris.
No, you go. We'll go reverse order each time. You go.
Okay. I love Never Split the Difference by Chris Voss. I think that's, I probably read or listened to that book 7 or 8 times, and maybe every 6 months I'll peel it off again and whip through it. There's so many amazing things about business and that can help you in business and life. It's the best book I've ever read, I think.
Hands down, totally agree. I actually am lucky enough to be in a mastermind networking group with Chris, and
wow.
I'm telling you, it's fascinating. And here, just a side note, just because no one's ever mentioned that book. I think it is essential for every doctor and every TC to learn, especially with the negotiation part of it. I've gone to his master class. I'm planning on going out to one of his live classes. Here's the cool thing about Chris that people don't think about. Chris is an amazing, which makes sense, but he's an amazing student. Whenever we have a guest lecturer come in, Chris is in the front of the room taking just feverish notes about the whole thing. So I just love that you mentioned him, because I think it's one of the best books every business owner should read. So that's amazing. No pressure for you, Koz, to come up with a good book.
Well, yeah, I would agree with that, even though Jamie turned me on to it, and he doesn't leaf through it anymore because I still have his hard copy at my house, which I leaf through every couple of months. But I'm going to go with The Culture Code by Dan Coyle.
Nice. Yep.
But I'm going to add a couple of other ones there, because one of the things that I think makes Chris Voss's book, which, by the way, I would agree that's the #1 book. One of the things that I think makes that book so valuable is my favorite area to read on is behavioral economics. And so a lot of the underlying themes in Chris's book are out of behavioral economics. So I'm going to throw like 6 out here real quick.
Okay.
We're going to go, these are boring as all get out, but Nudge and Misbehaving by Richard Thaler. Mm-hmm. Okay, so Nudge is a very good one. Predictably Irrational by Dan Ariely. And then most people have mentioned a Cialdini book, so people know Influence, Robert Cialdini, but another one that he mentions is Persuasion. So getting people to think about what you're trying to guide them to by how you lead into what you're saying. So behavioral economics is my area of favorite reading and listening.
And it's where I believe, I'm so glad you guys mentioned some good books, that you obviously, I'm assuming you pass this along to your team members and you help them understand it. I believe that required reading for any TC and marketing department should be Influence, Persuasion, and Never Split the Difference. Those are my 3 top books. We mentioned kind of jokingly at the beginning, Koz, how you have all your books on audio. So, a book is, and I'm the same way. I have a whole library on Audible and audiobooks.com. And it's a book that I really, really believe in if I order the actual physical copy, because I want to take notes inside of the actual book. And those are those 3 books for me. I love it. Okay, so in my book, The Practice RX, I focus on team culture and team performance as a foundation for business growth. What do you see as the biggest challenge that private practice owners are facing with their teams and their office culture?
So I get to go first on this one. So Here's what I'm going to say. The biggest challenge is, quite honestly, the doctor's poor leadership skills. So I think it's a lot of docs sit back and look and say, oh, I wish my team did this. I wish my team did that. And I think we need to look in the mirror first. So enhance your leadership skills, reading, be open to communicating with your team about how you could be better, how you could coach better. And I'm going to throw one more out there that I haven't heard anybody talk about, but gossip. We have a zero, like it's a one gossip and you're fired no matter how long you've been tenured in this office. You do not speak negatively or ill about any other person unless you're speaking to them directly and finding a way to resolve the problem. So doctors could lead better, and if they could create an environment where teams are comfortable working together and there's no gossip, it's always, look, and it's like any family. We have our disagreements at times, but it should always be done respectfully and to the person that you have a disagreement with, not telling Susie who tells Jenny, who tells somebody else about something somebody did wrong. So timely and appropriate feedback from individual to individual.
I love it. I mentioned in a lot of my speeches, I do a test, right? I'll say, how many of you have like a no gossip policy? Oh, yeah, yes. And I'll say, well, here's the test, because I believe if you're going to have that as a culture value and a core value, it has to be a through line through your business. Go to your front office, and if your front office has any type of gossip magazine or like People or OK or any of those, you allow gossip in your office. You can't tell me you don't allow gossip, because you have those. You're telling your team members, you're telling your patients, oh, we say no gossip, but we really we kind of like it. So yeah, it's very powerful, very important. All right, Jamie, how about you?
I think the thing that most of us struggle with, both from a leadership doctor standpoint, leadership in the team, people in the practice, is not having an accurate self-perception. So not really knowing what it is that you are, both from a doctor and a team standpoint. And then I think you mentioned earlier, I think not having any real planning in place. If you don't know where you're going, anywhere will take you there. So, I think, when you talk about planning, you talk about a 1 year, 3 year, 5 year plan. The one thing I tell you about any of the 1 year, 3 year, 5 year plans I've ever done is that they're inaccurate, right? They're all wrong for a varying degree of something, but most of them are directionally accurate, meaning we're pointing in that direction. It doesn't actually turn out to be exactly the script for what happens, but at least allows everybody to kind of focus around one goal. So I think starting with some sort of accurate self-perception, 360 reviews, both for the team and the doctors, have helped us a ton. They don't really always feel that good, but they're super helpful in that perception. And then getting together with team planning so that you can put together goals, but both subjective and objective goals, which objective being the most important, you can measure it. I do love the OKR book, Measure What Matters. And I think that's really important. That's missing in most offices. Most offices that you talk to, raise your hand if you do a business plan, and no one raises their hands. But everyone's goal is, I want to grow more, but they really don't know what that really means or how they're going to get there. So it sounds really simple, but just kind of putting together a plan with some objective goals, and then starting with that accurate perception, I think is what's missing a lot.
It's also the difference between understanding the lead measures versus your lag measures, right? So many people just put that number out there. Yeah, I want to grow by 10%. Well, but what are you going to do every day to make sure that you grow by that 10%? Or we want to grow by X amount of dollars, or we want to make this big bonus this month, and not understanding the what I call the performance goals, so that you're doing those every single day. So important. All right, before we get to the last two questions, how can people reach out to you if they have questions about whether it be OrthoFi, how you just run your practice, the Orthodontic Partners group? How can they reach out to you?
I know that the common answer is usually to message us on Facebook, but I will tell you that Kyle and I both suck at that.
No problem.
So you're welcome to message us on Facebook when we don't write you back for a week or 2 or 3 or 4. It's not because we're ignoring you. We just don't do that very often. But I think that's a start. My email is jamesbreynolds18@gmail.com, and that's a good way to get a hold of me. So that's my personal email. So I think you can find our practice information anywhere. shoot it over that way.
Great.
Yeah, and mine is email jeff@kozbraces, KOZ braces.com. And I echo Jamie. I've actually missed the opportunity to do lectures at some pretty prestigious events because I didn't respond to Facebook messages since I only check it about every 6 to 8 weeks.
Oh, it just goes to show you're not wasting your time.
Or not interested on what somebody had for breakfast yesterday.
Yeah, absolutely. All right, you guys, this is a tougher question, but this first thing that pops to your head, the best advice you've ever received in life or in business?
So I get to go first on this one. I'm going to go back to what my dad said when I was young, and I was an aspiring baseball player who was really very average. And he said, you know what, it's better to be good in a lot of really things in life than it is to be great at only one thing. And there's some people that argue that, you've heard the Tiger Woods story about, focusing on only one thing. But to back that up, I'm going to give you a book, since Jamie and I both probably listen to a book a week. Range by David Epstein. And it talks about the counter. Yeah, it's a good one. It talks about the counter to the philosophy that you have to focus on only one thing. And he talks about chess players and athletes, et cetera, that focus on different sports or different activities and can still become exceptional at what they do. So be good at a lot of things. By the way, life is a heck of a lot more fun when you've got a lot of hobbies and activities and things that you're good at than just focusing only on one thing. And maybe it's worked for me because I've never been truly exceptional at any one thing, but it allows me to feel good about being good at the various hobbies that I have. So there you go.
There is a documentary series, and I'm failing to, not series, it's a movie, failing to think of the name right now, but they talk about champions and how they became champions. And they interview Wayne Gretzky. And Wayne talks about how he played hockey like crazy during hockey season, but as soon as hockey season was over, he went and played different sports. He was baseball and I think football too. And he talks about the importance of having that, not just focused on the one thing, made him a better hockey player because he could see things differently having that other experience. So I totally agree. Thank you for that book. We'll make sure we put that in the show notes along with the other books too. All right, Jamie, how about you? Best advice?
Don't eat yellow snow. I think that's a good one. I think I find myself saying that to my kids more than any other fatherly advice, especially here in Michigan. It's tough. There's a quote that I like from an author, Lemony Snicket. And he says, all the world's knowledge is contained within books. Read at your own risk, which is always really resonated with me. I think that's a great quote with a nice degree of snark in it. And it sort of feeds back to that accurate self-perception perception thing. I mean, I think a lot of the things that most of us struggle with whether it be hiring consultants or learning things, is all kind of out there for us to do. It's just a matter of going in and doing it, and taking the time to learn from it. It eliminates the excuses, though, which is something that all of us like to kind of focus on. So that quote has always stuck with me. And when I'm feeling lazy or undetermined, it seems to always pop into my head. So
read at your own risk.
Lemony Snicket.
I like that a lot. All right, last question, you guys. What's the best resource or tool every private practice owner should be using to grow their practice, in your opinion?
I mean,
Jamie, it's your turn.
It's biased, but are we not allowed to say OrthoFi? I mean,
no, you can. I'm surprised how many people don't promote their own stuff when I ask that question.
Yeah, I mean, I think, unbiased or not, I think we've worked really hard, so we are clearly biased, but we feel like that's really a great tool. Then the unself-promoting OrthoFi, I would say, an Audible account. So.
Nice. So true. People are missing out. People are missing out.
Damn, you took my hand. You had to throw in a Audible account. I'm just going to piggyback that by saying, if we think about all the time we spend in the car, doing dishes, folding laundry, things that don't take a lot of brain power and are effectively wasted time. You So I'm actually going to steal Jamie's because he told me this, and now it's easy. So an Audible account, but then train yourself to be able to listen to your books at 2.5 speed, and you can get through. We drive to New Hampshire for my son to ski every weekend. I can listen to a book in a 3-hour drive on Friday and in a 3-hour drive back on Sunday every weekend, and so an Audible account. But since Jamie already said that, I'm going to say, honestly, the best resource to grow your practice is you and your team. Look into the mirror, enhance your self-awareness, develop your leadership skills, create an environment where you want to grow and develop, and you want to really commit to leading your team to grow individually themselves and develop into better, stronger, faster, more involved people than they were when they came in. And it's a challenge sometimes because, it's egotistical, I think, to say like, I'm here to help you be a better person or team member. But, when you start to get to have enough gray hairs like Jamie and I have, I think you've earned the right after 20 years of practice to say, I'm looking out for you as a person. And when people know, I know we've already gone long and I could talk all night, but I actually asked a question of my associate tonight, our other Dr. Mike. I said, do you think I have a favorite team member in this practice? It was just a general question. And he said, well, I think you have a soft spot for Arcadia. And I said, you know why that is? Because Arcadia is severely dyslexic. And she's been working with me for 8 years. And she would be moderately employable in many other environments that she would, but we have worked together for 8 years to have her be not only a 7-year amazing clinical assistant, but now she's on the OrthoFi top 10 leaderboard of treatment coordinators out of hundreds and hundreds of treatment coordinators. I said, but I've got a soft spot for every team member that I've seen learn something or grow or develop or overcome a personal hurdle in their lives. And so if you as a leader can enhance your skills and then develop your team, before looking to go out to consultants, I'd look to develop within yourself. That's what I'd say.
I love it. First of all, thank you for mentioning the Arcadia story. So I grew up with dyslexia undiagnosed, though. I didn't know what it was. I thought it was couldn't learn. I had a very weird way of learning. And until we diagnosed my son with it, because we saw some irregularities in his writing and his learning capability, then I was reading the test going, yeah, that's me. And so I finally realized it. So I thought that story was very moving when you told that. I thought it was great. But I'm going to go a step further. I talk about this in my book that I believe as a business owner, when you put your name on a shingle over a door in any way, shape, or manner that you do, you actually have a responsibility to help grow those team members. You have a responsibility to show them how to be an amazing husband or wife or spouse in any way. You have a responsibility to show them how to give back to their community. You have a responsibility to help them want to elevate their life. That's why my whole thing is always, I don't care about creating great employees. That's such a boring job. It sounds not exciting at all. I want to help elevate their lives outside of the practice, so they'll bring that automatically in the practice, and the same with the doc. So I love your philosophy around that. I think it's spot on. I love it. That's great. Well, you guys, we have had a great conversation. I knew this was going to go long because there's two of you, so that was great. Heck, we might even split this into two podcasts.
Nice.
So part 1 and part 2 to be continued. But man, thank you so much for the amazing amount of information, the generosity of your time and your knowledge for all of our guests in the show and all of our listeners. I really appreciate it.
Thanks for having us, Dino. It was a lot of fun.
Thank you, Dino. We appreciate it. It was great to talk to you.
Absolutely, you guys. Thank you so much again. And thank you, everybody, for listening to the show as often as you do. If you are a regular listener, you know that this was a great occasion to hear two, like kind of doubled up on two really great experts in their field and what they do. No matter what your practice is, if you're a chiropractor, a dentist, orthodontist, no matter what private practice you have, I know that you walked away from this conversation with some really great nuggets. So I really, really appreciate it. Thank you again, everybody, for listening. Once again, as always, our goal here is to help you be more proactive, productive, and profitable in all areas of your life and business. Thanks for listening to the Propreneur Podcast. We'll see you on the next episode. Thanks so much again for listening to the Propreneur Podcast. We really appreciate your support. If you haven't subscribed already, please make sure you do so. Also, if you feel like you might be a good fit for our podcast as a guest or know somebody who you think would be, go ahead and email us at dino@dinowatt.com. Again, thanks for your support. We'll see you on the next episode.